Hi, this is Swapnil Bharti and welcome to today's episode of TFI Newsroom. And today we have with us founder, chairman, and CTO of Alluxio, Haoyuan Lee. I hope I said your name correctly.
You can call me HY. It's easy.
Perfect. Yeah, because
Either way.
excellent.
Yeah.
So, first of all, welcome to the show. I think last week or before that, you were at the AWS Summit.
Yes.
So, tell us what was your takeaway? What was the experience being there?
It's a great experience. It's a large event. I think the official number is 10K people, more than 10K people at the event. So by talking with many attendees at the conference, we learned that all people talk about the cloud trend, but we do realize that for many enterprise companies, they are going towards on their journey to the cloud. They have to go through a hybrid cloud journey first. After the hybrid cloud journey, after they got to the cloud and their cloud strategy, many of the leading organizations in the world, they have this multi-cloud strategy as well. That's actually quite aligned with our the motivation one of the motivations behind our technology as well, and we're super exciting to see the world is moving into that direction.
When we talk about multi-cloud and hybrid cloud, it can mean different things depending on who you talk to. Sometimes people may say you should be able to move your workloads between public cloud, AWS or Azure or Google, depending, or you can run a specific workload on one cloud because that cloud is optimized for that workload and run something else somewhere else. Or you can do a lot of things on-prem, when you talk about hybrid. So can you explain, a bit about what is these jargons, multi-cloud and hybrid cloud?
Yes, definitely. So multi hybrid cloud, it means that you have part of your deployment in the public cloud, as well as the other part of your deployment on premise. And for many of the leading organizations in the world, they have tremendous amount of investment have done for the on-premise environment. So there's a large footprint for the on-premise. At the same time, so they have also realized the value of the data, and they tremendously value the strategic side of the data. They want to keep that side on premise. So because of that, so they want to leverage existing environment. They want to keep the data on premise. By the same time, they also want to leverage the elasticity of the compute side in the public cloud. And the way they are doing this is that keep the data on premise and burst their workloads into the public cloud. And this is a very typical hybrid cloud deployment model. That's a hybrid cloud. And then beyond the hybrid cloud, we're seeing that so this cloud trend is significant from the IT industry. So, and for North America, there are several major cloud vendors like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, etc. It's very similar to 20, 30 years ago. We had IBM, HPE, EMC, etc. So it means from the customer's perspective, so because it's so strategic, they don't want to be locked in a single public cloud. And the way they are doing this is go to the hybrid cloud trend and leveraging more than one cloud at the same one more than one public cloud at the same time. And that's their public cloud strategy. So that's what we mean, and what we mean by by hybrid cloud as well as public cloud.
Right. And are there any specific industries or segments that are embracing, these hybrid cloud, multi-cloud strategy versus other ones?
Definitely. So Alluxio, our technology interface with most of the data-driven applications. So we focus on the data sector. For example, like advanced data analytics, real-time analytics, SQL queries, as well as the machine learning, AI, etc. So in these type of workloads, very naturally, we're talking with the companies who has been digitized but earlier than other companies as a whole compared with other industries. So it's mainly internet sectors, e-commerce, financial service, telecoms, etc. And in this company, the most advanced ones, they are in the early journey of the multi-cloud deployment. And many of these companies, they are already in the hybrid cloud and have deployed hybrid cloud in production environment. And by leading, we typically mean, like top 30, top 50 in their sector.
Right. Uh, when these, I mean, you said, these are the companies who are already kind of, relatively ahead in their cloud native journey, so when you deal with these companies at this stage, what are the challenges that they face versus, I'm not talking about the companies who are going through their digital transformation journey. So these advanced companies, what challenges they face and how you help them?
Um, they still face many different challenges. Like there are technology challenge, people challenge, all sorts of culture challenge, all sorts of different things. From the technology perspective, so the status quo before the existence of Alluxio, so in the industry, you can see the whole ecosystem is quite fragmented. And we can basically look at the whole ecosystem from the two layers perspective. One layer is a data-driven application layer. We call it the compute layer. They're on top. And the other layer is a storage layer, which store the data in a persistent way. So you can see for both compute layer and persistent storage layer, there are so many innovations over the past 2 decades. And there's so many different ways for people to leverage the data, build their data-driven applications on top. You have traditionally MapReduce for batch processing, and advanced to Apache Spark, advanced to SQL query like Presto, stream processing like Flink, like AI and machine learning like TensorFlow, PyTorch, etc. That's the compute side. And we can see that every 3 to 5 years, there's another wave of workloads from the compute side coming up and basically bring new workloads, new innovation, and new way of leveraging data to the world. That's the compute side. And from the storage side, we can see the similar trend as well. The cycle is slightly longer. The upper compute layer is 3 to 5 years, and the storage layer is more like 5 to 10 years. So that every 5 to 10 years, you can see in the industry, there's a cycle that there will be a new wave of storage systems being created to disrupt the previous generation. And typically they are better. What we mean by better is that they are faster, cheaper, and easier to use. And then you can see from the user perspective, they have a very fragmented data ecosystem they can leverage. And so that in their deployment model perspective, they have a very fragmented data platform as well. So because of that, because this fragmented data platform is very inefficient for these companies to leverage the data, the most valuable asset, one of the most valuable asset in their organization. So in one BU, in one team, they want to leverage data in a certain way. In another BU, in another team, they want to leverage data in a different way. And they all go to the data team today for the status quo, and they have to build this different stack, different deployment for these different BUs and different teams. Very inefficient. So that's the technology side and the platform side, the biggest challenge we're seeing. So because of that, that essentially motivated us to build this data platform technology, which lies between the computation framework layer, the data-driven application layer, as well as between the data-driven application layer, as well as the persistent storage layer. So we call this new layer the data orchestration layer. That's essentially the concept we proposed to the industry. And instead of trying to solve this fragmented data world in the existing storage layer or compute layer, we are trying to solve this status quo challenge in the new data orchestration layer, so that this new layer essentially in the middle, and all the data-driven applications only need to interact with this data orchestration system in the middle to interact with all the data stored in various storage deployment. could be the same storage deployment, could be a different storage deployment. And then this middle layer data orchestration system essentially virtualize the data from various storage systems and present, abstract them as well, and present industry common APIs with a global namespace to all the data-driven applications. And so that any of the team, when they want to leverage existing data application, they want to build an existing data application framework or build a new one, they can just ask the data on demand. And so that they can really serve as an organization with this platform, they can really serve the data as a service and make it super efficient. And we have users using this technology, and they have improved their modeler, their data scientist or analyst work efficiency, end-to-end work efficiency 4 times. So previously, 1 year's work. Now, with a new platform, with this data orchestration layer, they can essentially get it done within 3 months. That's like amazing. And we are very excited to see how people can leverage this new technology, this data orchestration system, which we implemented in the open source Alluxio, to enable people to have a much better, much faster innovation in their own industry. That's the technology challenge we're seeing in the industry, and how our technology can help address this challenge. So that's a long answer.
No, it's a complicated, but the interesting thing is that we actually live in a data-driven world. No matter what whether it's Ring or my watch or Tesla cars, we are living in a data-driven world. But data is something that people often don't talk about. And as we start, embracing all these machine learning, and it's all about data.
Yes.
The cloud that we mostly talk about, compute and everything, that is something kind of commodity. You can just take away. Data is that you bring. That is the actual asset, not the. So when you talk about data, I will talk about the open source component as well. But before going there, you said that you introduced this term. So when you say you, do you mean the community, or you mean Alluxio the company, or can you just give an overview of who else is doing data orchestration, and what are you doing in this space?
Yes, definitely. So so the whole technology originated from UC Berkeley AMP lab, and it's the same lab produced and created Apache Spark as well as Apache Mesos. And back then, our technology was called Tachyon. And I was doing my PhD in the lab back then. And this whole concept was my PhD topic and my PhD thesis as well. So essentially, we started this concept and created this concept from the lab at the beginning. And then along the way, this concept and the system is implemented by the community as a whole, which of course, Alluxio company also takes a significant part of the contribution to this open source community. But it's not just one company's effort, it is many different companies to help the development. And besides helping the development, it's very critical that we have many other thought leaders as well as industry visionaries. They are in this journey together to promote this concept and to evangelize this concept to the larger community, to the whole industry, which we very appreciate that we got this community together. And besides developers, thought leaders, visionaries, etc., we also are very fortunate that we have many significant users, and these users, they are using our technology deploying this open source technology in their production. And some of the biggest deployment, there are more than 1,000 single cluster, single Alluxio deployment, more than 1,000 node, one cluster. And these clusters, the experience of operating these clusters, the values these clusters have already bring into these organizations, and the feedback they have provided back to the community, it has also brought in tremendous value to the community as well. And of course, besides the user, we also have many partners. And I would say at the beginning, this was like the concept originated from the lab UC Berkeley as part of my PhD thesis. But along the way, I'm very proud we got where we are because of the whole community effort, and it's truly amazing. And I'm very proud. I'm very exciting. I'm very excited about this and excited about the future. And I also want to encourage more people to join the community as well, to contribute to the community in all different ways. And it has to be done in order for this technology to truly fully disrupt the IT industry, which then will help all the different industries, all the different sectors as a whole. It truly requires the joint effort, collaborations among the community, within all the members in the community, as well as the bigger community as well. So that's how it started and how it came to where it is today.
Right, just the way there is a popular PayPal mafia where Elon Musk and all those people, Peter Thiel, came out. So from US Berkeley also, Ali Ghodsi is there, Ben Henman is there, and you are there. So it's like a little gang of mafias who are creating these amazing open source companies and amazing open source projects. Especially if you look at big data, that's the core. All these three. Let's talk about the open source components. So how much of your work is fully open source, or do you have any proprietary components as well?
Definitely. So most of the work, they are actually open source. And we believe it is important that we build a very strong core, open source core, so that as many companies in the world they can leverage as possible. So you mentioned the big data, and we believe data is a foundation for the future, and AI is one type of workloads on top of that, and there are so many other workloads will be created on top of the data as well. And for example, like autonomous driving, all these different workloads, they're just an application on top of data. So with that in mind, in the end, with that in mind, these different workloads, so they fundamentally, with this core, more and more. So let me take a step back. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is that even though there are so many new applications today being generated, even though there are many leading companies in the world, they're still leveraging the data in a tremendous way. So this data revolution is still at the early stage and early phase of this whole data era. So we believe you have to build a very strong foundational core to enable more organizations to leverage the data. So that's what we're doing here. And because of that, we have significant amount, like majority actually, of the technology, IP, open sourced. That's the first part of the answer. And the second part is that as the organization, as a company, and we believe we need to make a profit as well. And we have enterprise features like security features, like encryption, standard enterprise features, those in our enterprise edition. so that many like enterprise companies, if they want to, they can choose to buy the enterprise edition, and as a company, we got the revenue from that side, and then put more resources as to development and evangelize the technology as a whole to push this forward as fast as possible, and that's the way we've been doing this.
Yeah, that's a typical. Not every company can be Red Hat, but this is the kind of established model. But the thing is that anyone, if they want, they can just take the open source code and they can run it. They are not kind of vendor logged into you if they use Alluxio. That's correct, right? You
That's
just offer some additional features for enterprise customers, so that people can decide whether they want to build or they want to buy. Correct?
definitely,
Perfect.
definitely. So that's exactly right.
Right. And you announced Alluxio 2.0 at AWS Summit. What is new there?
So there are many new features. So as well as there are some fundamental improvement for our Alluxio core. So one thing is that, as I mentioned at the beginning, this multi-cloud trend. So in Alluxio 2.0, we have significant enhancement and improvement from the multi-cloud perspective. And for this conversation, we talk about data-driven application. So Alluxio 2.0, we have much better and native support for AI and machine learning workloads through our POSIX API. That's the data-driven application side. That's one angle, and the cloud is the second angle. And from the core perspective, and we have significant improvement for the core as well, Alluxio core, which we now can support billions of files, and which is being requested by some of our advanced users. And we also built a unified data and control plan with a gRPC, which is technology came out from the Google open source. And also we make the user's life much easier by the ease of HA deployment by using the Raft-based embedded journal. So that's the core side. That's the third dimension. And the fourth dimension is that we also build in a thing we call data service, so that our users can easily leverage these services to operate the data and under Alluxio and managed by Alluxio. For example, the service includes like cross different storage parallel data movement. The service also includes like adaptive replication, so that we can enforce the number of copies of the data in Alluxio to enforce certain performance characteristics for the workloads on top of us. That's the data services. And then another important set is we also increase the number of under storage, different type of storage systems can be mounted under Alluxio. Besides all the file system, like all the object stores, all the cloud storage, etc., we also added HTTP and HTTPS support, so that people can also leverage Alluxio to interact with the data through HTTP and HTTPS protocol. And all these are very foundational feature-wise, like strong feature we released to our open source community. And besides this is another thing which is critical, which is ease of use in this journey. So for the ease of use, and we have many new features as well. Two things I want to call out is that, so we have a one button or one command, AWS Elastic MapReduce integration. So as a user, either EMR user, they can do one command or one script, so that they can just launch Alluxio in their EMR environment very seamlessly and very simple. And now we also have supported Kubernetes deployment. And so many people who are using Kubernetes, they can easily run data and machine learning workloads nowadays.
Perfect. And as you said, these features are added to the open source project, not the product. That's correct, right? And
exactly.
Yeah. And since it's an internal product versus project cycle. How do you keep up with the code base of Alluxio in your products? What is the cadence there?
Oh, you're saying between the open source version and the enterprise, the community edition and the enterprise edition?
Yeah, so that your customers, they get to either use the latest version, or I mean, you are the one who are also the primary developers.
Yeah. So we try to release the two versions at the same time,
Okay.
whenever possible, and two editions at the same time whenever possible. And sometimes it's a 1 or 2 weeks difference, but we try our best to make them as sync as possible.
Okay.
And as I mentioned earlier, we put most of the IP innovation in the open source. So and we architecture software in the right way, as elegant as possible. So it's not been a tremendous challenge for us yet.
Yeah, it's good for you. So you have customers who are using Alluxio, and then you have community, users who are using it. Uh, how does it? I mean, the interesting thing is, because you guys are also primary developers, so this question may not make sense, but do you have an upstream first policy where, if the feature, is requested by your customers, or, whatever you want to add to your product, but you see that, hey, you know what, it makes more sense to go to upstream versus keeping in a product. But it's also kind of tricky question, because you are this could be a value add to your customers versus. So first of all, how do you make that decision? Because you don't have to take it to some third-party open source project, and where it may or may not be accepted. So how do you make that decision? And do you prioritize upstream first, or do you say, hey, it doesn't matter?
It definitely matters, and this is always a challenge for the open source software companies. And from our perspective, we do have a guideline, and what we learned from the industry is that for different communities, they have different type of guidelines, as well as along the progress of the community, along the progress of the company, the guideline may change as well. So from our perspective, what we are seeing is that typically enterprise companies and community users, they're different type of users. And because there are different type of users, the features they are requesting, they are typically different as well. So for example, as I mentioned, for the enterprise companies, they typically require some traditional, very typical enterprise features like encryption, very strong security requirement, which on the other side, from the community perspective, many users just may not care. So that's the positive side, so that when we are seeing the feature requests from two sides, typically the overlap is not that big. And from our guideline perspective, as long as the feature is not the traditional enterprise feature, and it's a feature that we can bring the value to the broader community as a whole, typically we just push that feature. We want to prioritize that feature into the community. And that's the way we have been doing this.
Once again, thank you so much for talking to me today. And as I said, I look forward to seeing you in person.
Likewise. So regardless of the conference, I will be presenting at the Open Core Summit as well. So regardless of the conference, whenever you come to the Bay Area, let me know, and love to meet and chat in person. And if I go to East Coast, hopefully we can meet in person as well.
Awesome. Thank you. I look forward to it.
Thank you, Swapno. Appreciate that.
Bye.